Assalamu alaikum warahmatullahi wabarakatuh. Hope you're doing well. Here in book 1 of Mufti Menk's Motivational Moments, the section deals with a lot of patience. So there was this quote here I wanted to share with you. Bismillah. No matter how angry, never use harsh words on others, for those could be the last words you'll ever say to them. Choose to be kind always. Now, that's hard for me to do. I have a problem because I go in and it's a hard habit to break. I don't know how to do it. I go 0 to 100 sometimes, and then I'm like, what? But I notice how, for example, sleep deprivation, you become way more irritated, and I think a lot of moms, if they do a lot of introspection, they will see that, there's lack of sleep, it affects your whole body. With every kid you have, and the, days and months, some years go by where you're getting 5 hours of sleep, of broken sleep, you're not able to nap, and even if you try to nap, it's hard because you hear the children during the day, they wake you up. Your body has this hypersensitivity. It helps us to, in our primal days when we're in the forest and we hear something creeping, a twig snap, we hear our baby whine, we're able to tend to our child's needs. So our ears are hyper aware. Now, some women don't have that because they take medication, they're on some type of psych meds, they drink alcohol, they're potheads. So there are women who dull their senses and they don't have that. But when you're a sober individual and you're very attuned to your baby's needs and you sleep in the same room as your baby, you're more aware of every single noise. Okay? And as your sleep deprivation compiles and compounds, one nap isn't going to solve that, really. And your hormones and your mood, your whole body chemistry is just struggling. You get chest pains, your appetite changes, everything is affected by the lack of sleep. You have a permanent state of sleepiness on your eyes. You force your eyes open with tea or coffee, trying to keep yourself awake and do what you have to do throughout the day. And there are some people who will make their elder kids watch the younger, but you'll hear crying, toys fighting, it's really hard to do. And if you live in a small space, you have close proximity to the noise, you're not able to sleep very well. Your child wakes up in the night or your other kid wakes up, and you never have solid, deep sleep, right? Some children, they get a stretch of sleeping good and others not. So I've noticed that my patience is more thin because of the lack of sleep. And I realize since I don't have proper support and I'm not really able to do what I want to do, really, and I can't get as much rest as my body needs, that means I shouldn't really have any more children. Because if I can see how angry I get and how hard it is to just survive on so little sleep day after day, and you have to keep pushing. It's hard to be positive, poppy, perky. It's very difficult. It wears you down. There's a reason why sleep deprivation is used as a form of torture. It's a heavy burden. And pediatricians, they get asked a lot, when will my kids sleep through the night? It's not fun. And a lot of moms who have good babies that sleep, they're not put through that trial. They don't have a lot of empathy unless they've had a difficult baby. But other moms who've had it worse, or at least gone through that with one kid, they know exactly what I'm talking about. And so I have noticed that I'm more harsh with the lack of sleep. That's not an excuse, but it's an observation. Because it's weird how sounds hurt your ears, how brightness bothers you when you're sleepy. It's really strange, man. Everything changes. And you will get mad at something that you usually would have been able to cope with or deal with better when you were more rested, right? Some people, when they're hungry, they're more snappy. When you're tired, exhaustion, like compounded and extended exhaustion. And remember, you're high functioning when your children are running here and one's there. Oh, gotta make sure this kid isn't doing that. You don't get to turn off. So not only are you exhausted, but you have to be the entertainer, the cook, do chores, and then engage with people, noises. It's a lot to deal with, a lot of stimulation. When all your body wants to do is lay down on the ground, collapse, and go into a deep sleep, you have to keep going. You know, my grandma used to sleep a lot, and so did my mom, and them sleeping, we were able to get into mischievous things. So I told myself, no matter how tired I am, I'm not just going to be the kind of mom who is sleeping all day, even though she's exhausted, and then just let the kids run wild, because that's how you get into trouble. And when you are asleep and you just let your teenagers do what they want, they're going to get into mischievous stuff. Okay. Especially with cell phones. My kid doesn't have a cell phone. But it's just something to it. Like, some people let their kids go in and out. There's something there. Yeah. They have access to the internet. They know you're asleep. They might be sneaking something. You just never really know. And like, my grandma would stay up in the night. She'd be a night owl. And then she'd sleep all during the day. You'd come home. She just didn't care about engaging with me at all. And I'd be like, wow, this is crazy. And then my mom, she sleeps a lot. I call her, try to have contact with her, and she's asleep. And it's like, how are you so tired? Like, but her medication also zonks her out. And you're like, no, I'm not trying to do that. And I've had friends who they talk about how their mom also sleeps a lot. And don't get me wrong, sleep is wonderful and it's a very feminine thing to nap. But you're going to have to deal with a certain amount of sleep deprivation. And with that comes your irritability. Because your kids need you to be present, even if, like, you may get more snappy because you're sleep deprived. But you can't just give up and sleep. And then you wake up and they've made a huge mess, or the worst is you make yourself even more tired when you go to lay down, and you're like, oh, and you feel the sleep coming on, and then, wah, give it back, I want it, Mom, and then they barge in the door, you want to give me my toy, and you're like, oh, please, just go on. You can't. And even husbands, they're also tired because they're working all the time. You live in a small area, they hear the baby. Everyone's exhausted, especially when you don't have external family. You don't have money for a doula, nanny. It's just two parents dealing with that, and then having to also do things during the day, not being able to sleep. It wears you out. It is a heavy burden, a heavy trial. So difficult. And people who sleep, they have an entirely different experience of parenthood. And so, with that, you have to remember here, I'm going to just try to remember, you get angry, try not to use harsh words, but it's so hard because it's almost like your body, it's like, why did you do this? Like, because you're just like, whoosh, that's how it feels. Like, it almost comes out faster than you can recognize. So, I have to work on that, and I know that there's some moms who they feel guilty at the end of the day, like, oh, I wish I would have had more patience. But they're tired and exhausted. And then things get better, I'd argue, once you get more sleep. But that's also something to think about before you have a lot of children, is how are you going to react with no sleep? And it's going to wreck your health. You know, sleep is important for your health. And when you're held hostage by, like, you can't sleep versus you choose not to sleep, it's a very different feeling. If you don't want to sleep because you're playing video games or something, your will is there, and it's totally different. You're just irresponsible and dumb. Or you're staying up for a paper, or you went out with your friends, whatever it is. But it's much different when you need sleep and then you can't. Because you realize you're held hostage and you can't do it. So, and you also don't know each night. Will the child sleep through the night? How many times will they wake up? And then when they're sick, it's even worse. Because they're gonna wake up more, they're crying, making noises, and then you're like, oh, how do I keep my eyes open and not pass out? And then in the newborn stage, every 2 hours you're nursing, every 3, and you're like, and then your body is like, you're bleeding still, and you're sore, you're in pain, and then you have a little one who needs you, and you have other children running around, playing, making noises, and you're like, It's so important to help moms, and I really want there to be more help for moms, truly. So let us all try to think about how we get too harsh sometimes. Apologize when need to. But man, for me, in order to be less harsh, I need to sleep and I need to prioritize my health. Because lack of sleep is life-threatening and brings on illnesses, hurts your immune system, and it's not a joke. It's really not. Some people brag about how little sleep they get and they start to hallucinate, they start to have psychosis. It's not good for your body. And you heal slower from injuries, from scrapes and everything. It just totally takes a toll on you, on your emotional stability, your health, your appetite, your patience, your sense of humor. It's a heavy burden. So I'll try to remember this. It's not easy, but we'll try. Let me know what you think. Please like, comment, subscribe, share, and join the blog.